On behalf of the New Rochelle Public Library, we want to welcome you and thank you for joining us for this community meeting. My name is Whitney Barrett. Am I supposed to take off my mask? I am the president of the library board. Please note that today's meeting will be recorded from this point forward. I also want to make sure to introduce my colleague and library director, Tom Giaffino, my fellow board trustees, Lucille Renwick, Corey Galloway, and Sarah Langlois, and public works partners, our consultants who are guiding us in the strategic planning process. Today's meeting will be translated in Spanish. We will first take a moment to ensure that our participants using our translation services are able to properly access that feature. Have we done that? Good? So far, so good? Great. Am I supposed to? Okay, good. So you go to the bottom right corner of your screen and select the interpretation icon, and then select your preferred language from the list of options. We are offering the meeting in both English and Spanish this evening. Great. We are here today because we need your help to shape the future of the New Rochelle Public Library. This community meeting marks the beginning of public engagement and gathering input for the NRPL strategic plan. Later this week, we will be disseminating a survey, both online and in paper format, that will be available in both Spanish and English. The survey will be live through September 30th, so please share your feedback and tell your friends, family, and colleagues. We welcome you to join our upcoming board meetings on Thursday, August 12th, and Thursday, September 9th, to provide feedback and ask questions. We also welcome meeting requests to further discuss the NRPL strategic plan. The NRPL is your library, and we want to know what you envision for it. What are your big picture ideas for the NRPL? What does the future of programming, facilities, and service at the NRPL look like to you? All ideas are not only welcomed, but encouraged, and no input is too big or too small. Please be respectful of one another, and only one person should be speaking at a time. Your feedback today will not end here. This is just the beginning. It will guide the goals and objectives of our upcoming strategic plan. The Department of Education requires all public libraries to have a 5-year strategic plan. Our last plan spanned 2015 to 2020. Strategic plans are important because they guide the strategic goals and operations of the library, which are guided by public input. We are kicking off the strategic planning effort with today's community meeting. The goal of the 5-year plan is to provide a concrete vision for improving the safety, accessibility, and quality of the library for residents all across New Rochelle. In addition to understanding your vision for the library's programs and services, tonight we also want to hear from you about your experience with the library's facilities. Last year, the NRPL commissioned a building audit of both the main branch and the Huguenot Children's Library. The audit uncovered some needs in both buildings. In addition to understanding your vision for the library's programs and services, we also want to hear about your experience with and priorities regarding the library's facilities. I want to thank you, all of us want to thank you for taking the time to be with us today in person and virtually. The workshop will be an hour and a half. I want to remind you that this is being recorded. Now I'd like to introduce Celeste Fry and the team at Public Works Partners, the consulting firm helping us with the strategic planning process. Celeste.
Thank you, Whitney, and good evening, everyone. As Whitney said, my name is Celeste Fry. I'm the CEO of an urban planning and consulting firm called Public Works Partners, and I am joined here this evening by my colleagues Aurelia Aceves Hogan, Jordan Cosby, Jacob Ertel, who is down at the end, and Bibi Lagardeur. And we're a firm that is mission driven, where we focus on strengthening organizations like public libraries that strengthen their communities. So we're very excited to be part of your strategic planning process. If you are participating this evening via Zoom and you have any technical challenges or immediate questions, please send a message using the chat function and our team will respond. Jordan is mostly the Zoom technical person, so she'll respond. As our hosts, Whitney and Tom mentioned, the goal of tonight's conversation is to develop a 5-year strategic plan for New Rochelle Public Library to implement from 2021 to 2026. Informed by input gathered from the Board of Trustees, from library staff, from library patrons, such as you all, and also the broader New Rochelle community regarding the library's future programming and physical features. Here's the agenda for tonight's meeting. Aurelia will provide an overview of the strategic planning process. We'll then facilitate a visioning exercise with all of you to gather your input, and then we'll have a question and answer session where both live and virtual participants can ask questions directly to us as the facilitators and also to the staff and leadership and the Board of Trustees. After the quick Q&A, we'll do a short wrap up with a few announcements. Throughout tonight's workshop, we invite you to reflect on your own perspective and offer feedback based on your experience using the library or why you have chosen not to use the library. Your input is a critical part of this process. This community meeting will not be your only opportunity to give feedback on the future of NRPL. Later this week, we will be launching a survey that will be both online and we'll have paper surveys available in the library in both English and in Spanish that will be available for you and other members of the community to complete anytime between now and the end of September. I will remind us once again, if you're just joining via Zoom, that you may choose Spanish interpretation by clicking on the icon that is a little globe in the bottom right of your screen, and then choosing Spanish language. And you'll be able to hear our Spanish interpreter, who we're very grateful is here. And so with that, I'll hand it over to Aurelia to talk a little bit more about the process.
Thank you, Celeste, and thank you everyone for being here today. First, we want to start off with a few quick polls and just to get a sense of who is here today. If you're participating via Zoom, a poll will appear on your screen and you can participate from your device. For those in person, we'll do a show of hands for these questions. So for those on Zoom, which branch of the New Rochelle Public Library do you visit most often? You see your options: the main branch and the Huguenot Children's Library. For those here in the room today, by a show of hands, who visits the main branch most often? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And the Huguenot Children's Library, I think that would leave one person. Okay, so 12. Great, so everyone in the room here visits the main library most often. Jordan, what did we hear on Zoom? Okay, so out of the 24 people that are on Zoom right now, 23 of them visit the main library most often. Okay, for our next poll, on average, how often do you visit the New Rochelle Public Library? These are the options that folks will see on Zoom. Now for those in the room today, by a show of hands, do you visit the New Rochelle Public Library, the main branch, at least once a week? 1, 2. More than once a month? 1, 2, 3, 4. Once a month? 1. And a few times per year? 1, 2, 3, 4. No one will pick never because you're here today. Okay. Right, today counts. Okay, so we have about 6 people more than once a month, at least once a week, and then 5 once a month or a few times per year. What did we hear over Zoom?
Seven, yeah, 5 or 6 people.
Okay, so we have some pretty frequent users participating today. That will be great to get your input. Last poll, so for those on Zoom, what are the main reasons you visit the library? You can let us know all the answers that apply to you, so you can have multiple selections. Now, for those folks in the room, just take a look at the selections. And then by a show of hands, now tell us what drives you to the library. So is it programs? Don't see hands. You can pick more than one. You have one for programs. Services? 2 hands. Public events? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And books? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. The big, it can for services. Okay. So it's say that the majority of people in the room are really driven to the library because of public events and books. And then what did we hear on Zoom? Okay. So it looks like consistent though on Zoom and in person, the drivers are books and public events. Great. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for giving us that input. Want to talk through now what a strategic planning process entails. And our first steps were, consulting and meeting with the Board of Trustees to get a sense of what this process could look like. This community meeting is the beginning of our engagement with New Rochelle residents, so thank you for being a part of this meeting today. Our next step is launching a survey at the end of this week that we hope all of you will participate in, and you will share with your friends, your family, and your colleagues, and your neighbors. The survey will be accessible through the library's website, will be promoted through social media, and on email listservs included in newsletters. We'll also be working with community partners so that we can reach as many residents as possible across New Rochelle. As Whitney and both Celeste mentioned, the survey will be open through the end of September. And so we hope this will encourage a lot of engagement over this next month into the beginning of the school year. All of the input that we do collect from events like this, from the survey, and we had a working session with the staff at the New Rochelle Public Library, all of that will inform the strategic plan and the goals. And we'll be presenting that in October after we're able to analyze the survey results that we do receive from the community. And the strategic plan will include recommendations on services and programs, as well as the physical changes that you might like to see be made to the library. So we'll dive into some of those topics now as we transition into a visioning activity that Celeste will lead us through.
Great, thank you. And before that, actually, I just wanted to ask a quick question for both in-person and Zoom participants. If anyone has any suggestions on how we can publicize and get the word out about this survey, you can just raise your hand if you wanna. Is there particular Facebook groups or a senior center or educational groups who might be willing to post about the survey? Share a link. Yeah, so like the PTOs and the parent kind of booster club at the high school, that's a great suggestion. Thank you. Oh, excellent. I bet she would say she has a lot to do. Thank you so much for those thoughts. Hopefully you will see the survey link so many times, you'll forget whether you filled it out or not. And if you do see it, please share it with friends. All right, so in thinking about the next 5 years for the NRPL, if those of you in person could look around your chair and find a pen and a set of sticky notes, we put them on every sort of 4th or 5th chair. I think we'll get you some, sir, on the 2nd row. We'll get you some. They're right behind you. So grab a pen and some sticky notes. If you can't find one or you need something, raise a hand and Aurelia can bring you some more. So with the sticky notes, please take a moment and think of 3 ideas or thoughts that you have about what kinds of programming and services you would like to see at the New Rochelle Public Library. So these could be new types of technology classes or new types of entertainment programming or events or art exhibits that you'd be really interested in. Just write down 3 ideas. You can just write down 1 or 2 words or more detail, however you'd like to do it. So I'm going to have you take a few minutes to do that. And then there are papers posted on both sides of the room, over on that wall and over on this wall. So you can feel free to go put your Post-it notes on the page, or if you prefer, you can just raise your hand and Aurelia is happy to take them and put them up for you. If you are joining us via Zoom, you should, hold on, I just look at the instructions. Take a moment to copy and paste the link from the Zoom chat that Jordan has shared into your preferred browser, Internet Explorer or Safari. It will link you to a virtual whiteboard called a Jamboard. Once you're in that board, you'll see an icon on the left hand of your screen that looks like a little sticky note. If you click on that, then you can also fill in a few words about programming and services that you'd like to see at NRPL over in the next 5 years. It's fine to write in English or Spanish. If you have more than 3 ideas, that's also good. Board members, you can feel free to write down ideas too. We take them from everyone.
Thank you.
If you're on Zoom and you're having trouble accessing the whiteboard, you can also put comments just directly into the chat on Zoom in English or Spanish, and we will get those as well. And in a moment, we're going to share some of the ideas from both the live and Zoom participants. So then once you've shared with us some of your programming ideas, we want you to think a little bit about the facility. So also again, 3 Post-it notes, 2, 4. Jot down what changes you'd like to see to the library's facilities or what you'd like to see preserved. Or just how the library could offer a more pleasant and easy experience for you, physically speaking. One of the ideas, many of the ideas are up here, but yeah, more accessibility, longer hours, different types of space. So any thoughts or ideas that you have, please share those with us. And you can put them on the posters, or if you prefer, you can raise your hand and we can come and get them too. Okay, while we're waiting for folks to finish that up, because we have lots of people adding comments in the Zoom as well, would anyone be willing to just raise a hand and share some of the suggestions that you made? Yes.
Junior college in California that taught one how to use the library, how it's organized, where the materials are, how do I find out a specific piece of information. Now, of course, this was this is back in the dark ages when computers didn't exist and one had to actually do it yourself. But I found that to be probably the finest course I took, the most valuable course I took in college, because going to UC Berkeley, there were 27 libraries on the campus. And if one had to find something out, one needed to know how to use a library. I don't know if you do that in high school, but it would be a course I'd recommend to everybody to use it, because it's how to use it, how it's organized. What is the card catalog telling you? Why am I looking at 926.27A? I mean, those sorts of things are important if you want to really learn how to use it. And the wealth of information is phenomenal. It's just how do I find it?
That's a great suggestion. Thank you so much. So kind of an orientation to the library and how to find information and do research. Thank you. And now I think Aurelia has been organizing some of people's thoughts that she'll share. Do I have one more person who wants to share a thought before Aurelia talks through some of the general ideas? Yes. Mm-hmm. So this auditorium itself, thank you. That's an excellent suggestion. So more creative and expansive use of this exact auditorium. So potentially a drama program for middle schoolers. Being the mom of a middle schooler, I know exactly what you mean. Great, thank you so much. Those are excellent suggestions. Aurelia, do you want to share some of what people have,
Yeah.
what you've put together?
Yep. Can you hear me on this? Okay, good. So to, I think, build on the same theme, one suggestion here is housing a professional theater company from this theater and more varied musical performances, theater programs for after school and summer camp, and um, the arts industry's job events for the New York area, including television and film, more film and television, music screening programs. There's Afro-American artist exhibitions, dance groups on stage, play performances by children. We have a series of vocational speakers for high school students, further collaborations with the public schools, a drama club for middle schoolers. Spelling bee challenge for children. And then better support for the underserved South End, bilingual story time, Spanish for beginners. I see here more technology classes, celebrations of events like Women's History Month, and book discussions, book talks with the authors. And then some additional suggestions here are math and reading workshops, SAT and ACT tutoring, teen mentoring, coding classes, and enrichment support for after-school programming. Is there anything that I missed that someone wants to highlight from one of their suggestions? Oh, sure. Okay. Oh, public speaking classes, Toastmasters.
Those are all fantastic suggestions. And I really appreciate how all of you are thinking across the kind of rich breadth of library users and New Rochelle citizens. Oh, I forgot to ask the board. They didn't get to put any of their Post-it notes up. So Aurelia's going to come get those. Sorry, I was looking the wrong way. They took advantage of my invitation. They have lots of Post-it notes. While we're waiting to get those up, actually, and we're gonna talk about Zoom ideas, but I also want folks to think just briefly about one more category, which is books and materials. It's funny because books are what the library is kind of built on, right? But we don't think of those, but are there, I'd like for folks just to give a little bit of thought to, are there categories of books or other types of reading materials or electronic reading materials or things like that, that could further enrich the collection here at NRPL. That'd be a great thing to also include. So you can feel free to jot something down, or I'll loop back and ask if folks want to share thoughts on that. So Jordan is going to share some programming ideas that have come up through the Zoom participants as well.
Great. So there have been a lot of amazing program and service ideas through Zoom, and I really appreciate everyone's comments. There's more than I can jot down on my notes. So if I'm not reading yours aloud, please do not be offended. We are keeping track and we'll be downloading the chat after the meeting. So everything that you're including in the Zoom will be kept, and we'll be reviewing those notes later. So some great things that echo what has already been said. Bilingual job coaching, also investing programs. That would be a really interesting program. Open mic, I guess that used to be a program here, maybe pre-pandemic days. And I guess someone would really like for that to be something that comes back. Songwriting classes for children, kids book club. Immigration counseling, that would be a really important one. Separately, another more generally, immigrant services. Someone else said that they appreciate the selection of materials in Spanish, and information on how to use the library for research. That would be really helpful.
Thank you. And thank you to all our participants on Zoom who are also so actively, I'm seeing the comments scroll by on the corner of out of the corner of my eye. So Aurelia, do you have any additional thoughts that have come up from board members or others that you want to share?
Yep, I think a couple stand out. So there's yoga movement classes for special needs students, and the use of the theater during after hours and on weekends. And let's see. Others kind of supported the other general themes that we were looking at before, but there's also TED Talks from local folks in many languages, night markets, that was a new one, and craft classes offered, and expanded intergenerational programs for older adults and kids.
Thank you. So did anyone have thoughts? Yes, sir. Called what? I'm sorry. Lyric. There's an organization in New Rochelle called Lyric. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Sure. So, right. So potential partnerships with Lyric or other organizations that provide those kind of enrichment talks and programs. So did anyone have thoughts about books or collections or reading materials, physical or electronic? Sure. Sure. I mean, that's definitely one that I think Tom, is highly qualified to answer.
I hope so. It's a good question. Um,
I'm sorry, Tom, would you mind repeating the question so that our Zoom participants also are able to hear it? Thank you.
Absolutely. The question was posed by a member of the audience. He asked, how does New Rochelle Public Library choose its online resources, specifically ebooks and perhaps e-audiobooks? And the answer is the library staff chooses
General book.
books in general, not just ebooks? Okay, I understand. Sorry, I thought it was specific to electronic. Well, the library staff has a is diverse, and we assign areas of the collection for children, for teens, and for adults to a variety of staff members who have interest or expertise. And the staff will use a variety of sources to select material for our library. They use professional review journals like Library Journal, Publishers Weekly, Kirkus. They also use more popular resources, might be People Magazine, the New York Times bestseller list, et cetera. So they use critical review sources to make selections. They also very happily take requests from the public when there's something that a member of the public feels that the library should have. If it's a new title, they will purchase it. If it's an older title, the staff will encourage the members of the public to borrow through our 38 library consortium system in the county. And the same can be said for electronic resources as well. We try to stay up with what people want, and we use all sorts of devices to stay current, but ultimately we do ask for the public to provide input.
Thank you. And thank you for that question. So we had a few suggestions come in through Zoom as well. Ones that I saw were enhanced resources and collection around true crime and criminology. And this is all being captured as well. And suggestions around more documentaries, particularly around geography. And this person was especially interested in Peru. And then I think I saw one more. Oh, yes. Online, and this is actually a good question that I'll throw back to Tom again, that someone in the Zoom asked, which is, are there online news subscriptions that the library holds that library patrons could access? I would imagine that could include anything from major newspapers like the New York Times to things like LexisNexis.
Yes, thank you, Celeste. We actually do have a variety of online resources that relate to news sources. Probably chief amongst those resources would be the New York Times, which is currently available to all our residents at no charge. They just need to log in with a library card, and then they have the ability to have multiple sessions. And so that's one major resource. We also have a variety of electronic magazines that are cover all sorts of topics, more news in general, and then specific to areas of interest or hobbies for people as well. We also have ebooks and audio books too that also might deal with topics that relate to those sorts of issues. We have streaming services like Canopy and oh golly, there's another one that will come to me that also have documentaries, et cetera, that deal with topics of the day.
Excellent, thank you. So now we want to move to shift and speak a little bit about the library's facilities. We've definitely spoken about this auditorium, which is great, but I want to ask Aurelia what other thoughts or suggestions people in the room had.
Yeah, so there was a couple of clear groupings. One is modernizing the building to be green. Another person said solar panels should be added. There's a fix the elevators comment and make the entrances more accessible. Then we have more use of outdoor space, more natural light, more lounge style seating, better use of surrounding outdoor spaces, more outside spaces, more free parking. And then another suggestion there, free 10 to 15-minute free parking. Some public art near the entrance. And then for a recommendation for some quiet spaces for comfortable reading within the library, some common areas for meetings, workstations that are communal, a cafe space, another person's at a bistro or a coffee shop, and then expanded workspaces.
Thank you. Those were all excellent suggestions. And now Jordan is going to share some suggestions from our Zoom participants as well.
All right. Those who are participating through Zoom have requested for protected outdoor parking lots, validated parking for patrons of the library, environmentally friendly and sustainable and green infrastructure updates. Safety and security was also something that came up specifically in regards to security guards. They would like more of those. And those were the main facility asks by those on Zoom. I think this is not totally facilities related, but someone also requested that the building have longer hours on the weekends.
I think that is definitely an important point as well. Excuse me. So I see a few more comments coming in. It's always exciting. One of the reasons that we commonly do these types of live meetings, whether virtually and in person, is because we get ideas from each other. You know, I know that many of you, for example, when we were talking about the theater, move from an idea that you already had and add to it and kind of enrich that. So thank you all so much for sharing your ideas with us. And I just want to ask if anyone has had new ideas, especially if there's anyone who hasn't spoken yet, who'd like to share one of their thoughts or ideas with us.
Or if you have.
Or if you have, that's also fine too. We just want to open up space. Yes, in the back.
District of New Rochelle. And I suggested a sensory space for some of our students who have different learning needs, whether that's a wall that they can touch or some other gadgets, seating that moves a little bit. So just to keep that in mind.
That's an excellent suggestion. And do you generally find that that's most helpful for younger students or older students as well? Right. Thank you. Great. All right. Yes.
For the library is the bookstore. I think, by a lot of people use the bookstore and it's well organized. I know there's a big backup of books, and I'm sure Amy could use any help she could get to organize the books, but I think that's a big asset to the library.
Yes, so the Friends of the Library bookstore, I think there were some other comments on the Zoom as well about people who particularly appreciated and liked that. It's nice to have both in one place. But yes, I know that sorting and cataloging books has been more difficult during the pandemic. Great, so thank you all so much. We are going to move, unless Aurelia had anything else you wanted to add from the organizing, we're going to move to the question and answer. We've already had a couple of great questions, but we'll put Tom and the board on the spot a little bit more. So we'd like to invite, first we're going to take questions from the folks here in the room, and then we will move over to take questions from our attendees on Zoom as well. And for those of you who are live, thank you for your patience with our efforts to make sure we are inclusive with our, I know you can't see the virtual attendees, which is why I keep referring to them so that you'll understand that this is actually a much larger meeting even than what you're able to see here tonight. We have 35 participants on the Zoom. So that's very exciting. So questions from the auditorium audience, you can direct you. Yes, sorry. Feel free to ask questions about the library, about the services, about the facility, about the strategic plan, and we'll figure out the correct person to answer your question. Thank you. So just so that folks on the Zoom can hear it, the question is, how have you decided to reach out to and include people who are not in the room tonight, all different types, different facets of New Rochelle society in the strategic planning process?
Sure, I'm happy to answer that. We started this process several weeks ago with a focus group with the board. It was public, so you were welcome to attend. And one of the questions Public Works partners asked us was, who should we include as part of the strategic planning process? And the answer to that is as many people as possible. So the obvious folks, the library staff, the library board. We had focus groups with both of those groups, and the library foundation, the Friends of the Library. We are looking to parents with young kids. We're looking to seniors to come and tell us what they want to see. We were advised that new young adults, like millennials moving into the apartments, high school students, middle school students, folks who can walk to the library, folks who never use the library. Why don't they? Why aren't you using the library? Folks in the North End, folks in the South End, people who are our community partners, anyone who we work with. There's the AARP, I know. There's any number of organizations that we partner with. Tom can fill the specifics in.
Right, and that was quite a good list, Whitney, so thank you for that. I'm also, I think it's important to highlight the fact that we have a significant Spanish-speaking community, and we're particularly interested in connecting with that population. They are avid library users, and it's extraordinarily important that we continue to connect with them and actually, frankly, improve how we communicate and interact with our Spanish speakers. Whitney mentioned earlier our community partners, and there are many in the community and actually in Westchester, and we have reached out to them as well as our colleagues on PWP. And so we are encouraging those community partners to talk to us via the survey, which of course everybody can participate in, and also the opportunity to meet with us in a more individualized group where myself and any members of the board, also quite possibly PWP, can conduct a focus group or a conversation about concerns or needs or issues that are pertinent to these particular groups of people. So we are keeping all our options open, and we are encouraging any sort of conversation that you would like to have with us regarding the library, what's happening here, what needs to happen, how you envision our future, because ultimately our long-range plan must reflect the community and the needs of the community. The library will follow where the community tells us to go.
We've started to build a list of organizations that we'll be conducting outreach with as well. Organizations that are based out of New Rochelle across all different neighborhoods. But we'll also take your suggestions if there are ongoing events in the community that groups that you're involved in are putting on. Please reach out to us and let us know so that we can have a presence. We would love to have paper copies of the survey there. We also have flyers with QR codes so people can access the survey easily through smartphones if they have them. So we're open to all your suggestions as well.
We're also reaching out to the underrepresented community, as well as low to moderate income community, just so we make sure we have a full breadth of everyone and get their input.
Yes, thank you. And if you want to provide suggestions of organizations we should connect with, please send that information to info@nrpl.org. And there's a point at which that'll be shared on the screen as well. But info@nrpl.org. And we will be monitoring that email and taking all the suggestions. Okay, another question? Yes.
It's not true. The library will stay right here where it is. That is a rumor and nothing more. No
So-
truth to that.
So just so folks on the Zoom can understand, the question was that there have been about rumors that people have heard that the library would be moved away from its current downtown location. And Whitney says, no, the library will not be moved. That is only a rumor.
I also want to actually, since you brought that up, since you brought up rumors, take an opportunity to state that our new communications and marketing coordinator, along with our director, Tom, in collaboration with the board and Public Works partners, have created a page on our website, a fact sheet that has information about the strategic plan, that has information about the process that we're following. It's fully transparent, and if it's not, you come and ask us questions. We're ready to answer any questions you have. But it also provides information about what our building audit revealed, why we're focusing on facilities, why we're looking so hard to you to let us know what you want to see in our buildings, and really encourage people here tonight and people on Zoom and anyone you speak to make sure you familiarize yourselves with that information, because we don't want rumors. We want everyone to have the facts at their fingertips and to feel confident that we're telling you as much as we can and as much as we have to tell you. You are us. We're nothing without you, right? We need to reflect what you tell us. So that's our top priority. That's our job. Thank you. And more.
I think it's very important that everyone takes a look at the audit report on the condition of the building. To reiterate what Whitney said, we have no desire or interest in moving the library, but we should pay very close attention to the condition of the building. So you can be aware of if we make any proposals to update or make sure we're in compliance on the building, that you understand why that's being done. That was done by an architect that did a complete audit for us. So please review that and get familiar with the condition of the building, which is why we're doing these get-togethers.
We have some questions coming from Zoom that Jordan will share with us in just a moment, but let's first do a follow-up on that. Can you, we didn't make this really a formal part of the presentation, but can you just speak briefly to some of the audit findings in case people are not familiar with it and it might help them kind of understand?
So some of the major findings from the building audit
I'm sorry,
included,
could you speak just
some of the major findings from the building audit included the replacement of air handlers. I believe we have 9 of them. 2 of them are really in need of replacement and they've reached the end of their life expectancy. We did get a proposal for that, but we have decided not to move forward with anything until we hear from the community. So after this 14-week engagement is when we'll start making some bigger decisions about the facility. Also, the replacement of the roof at the children's library was another big ticket item. And a lot of the systems, as far as plumbing and electrical, have reached their the end of their life. So those are big ticket items. Also, the roof at this building, some of the facade, our windows need to be replaced. I'm sorry? Yes, accessibility updates. Am I missing anything? Those are the big ones.
All right, thank you. So we have a couple of questions in the chat. One person is asking, is there a program where volunteers can read to children or persons with disabilities? I'll go ahead and read the next question. In the chat, someone earlier mentioned that the library had been a refuge during a power outage, and they're wondering if there is a generator, if there is another power outage in the future. I'll stick with those 2.
I think it's my turn again. The issue of the generator is entirely germane. Some years ago, we had applied for a grant through the state of New York for a generator, and we were unsuccessful, unfortunately. And so, we do not have a backup generator at this particular point, either here or at our Huguenot Children's Library. Certainly, as we go forward with if we make some improvements to the building, a generator would be entirely reasonable. And indeed, in the past, when the city of New Rochelle did lose power on a few occasions, the library miraculously regained power very quickly. And so we were a refuge, I think the word was used, for many people who needed to power up their devices. And we opened extra hours during those occasions to make certain that we were as widely available to our residents as possible. So that is the answer to that very good question. The first question, I believe, was whether or not the library sponsors a program that allows people in the community to read to children, in particular to children with disabilities. No, we do not have a program like that at this particular point in time. We are still recovering from the pandemic, and we will begin indoor programming, we hope, in September. It's certainly something to look at. In previous years, we did have a program that was extremely popular where we provided therapy dogs to help children read, and it was very successful. We had to discontinue because we lost our canine resources, but we would continue re-engaging in that area too as well. But I must say, just as a general point of fact, when it relates to adults working with children, we're very, very careful about allowing people that we are not entirely familiar with access to children. One of our major priorities is to be protective of our children in terms of adults using the children's library alone or for other volunteer purposes. We're careful.
Thank you. Those were excellent questions from our Zoom participants. We have a new one that has come in, which is, how would capital projects on the building be financed? Would there be a bond or a tax raise? This is a big question.
This is a big question. That is actually one of the questions we have included on our survey. We're at the point where, I don't think we mentioned the cost of the items that Sarah outlined for us, but they're substantial, millions of dollars. Would we say tens of millions of dollars? Over $10 million. Over $10 million worth. Again, that's available information on our website, so you can see for yourself. It's a good question. How will we finance these improvements that we need is a really important question. Again, we need to hear from you. Tom wants to say things.
One thing, one thing I think worth mentioning to our community, both here and via Zoom, is that the library for 15 years has very actively engaged in writing grants for specifically the New York State Library Construction Grant Program. Our library, in fact, I'm proud to share, is the most successful in the county during that time period. We've received nearly $2 million for monies to upgrade our physical plant. And that successful program would not have been successful without the matching funds. And in most instances, those funds were provided by our amazing New Rochelle Public Library Foundation, which it provides philanthropy donations to allow us to continue to improve our physical plant. So we, besides the issue of public financing, we have been very successful in grant writing along with great advocates and supporters like our foundation. And we will continue to upgrade our physical plant through that methodology as long as funds are available and the foundation is generous enough to support us.
Yep, I'll just add, and then Corey, I will just add that there are a number of ways to finance improvements. Public funding is but one. There's raising bonds, there's raising taxes, there are public-private partnerships, there's straight up private financing. All of these are options. We want to understand from the community how you feel about each of those options. What is your preference? What would you be willing to support? And each of them enables different rates of improvement. So if we continue as we are, which to Tom's point, we've been continuously improving the library facility as we're able to with the funding that we have available. It's not fast, it's over a long period of time, but we do, as much as we possibly can. If we want to see more drastic improvements, if we want to reflect the changes that are happening downtown, obviously that's a different rate of change and that requires a different level of financing. So again, we need to hear from the public. Thank you.
When we thought about bringing everyone together, part of the conversation was with the foundation as well as with the library itself was to do everything coordinated. So what we chose to do was obviously go to the public and just have a big discussion about what we're doing, because the foundation does a great job at raising capital and providing the assistance that the library needs. But we don't want the foundation to go raise capital when we don't know what the community wants. And then they do a capital raise, they burn their equity with those relationships, and we're not able to implement it to what you guys want. So the reason we're bringing this all together is we want to make sure we do a coordinated effort with the community, the foundation, and the library. So we look at this holistically.
That's all very helpful, and thank you for the valuable questions. Does anyone in the audience want to speak to these issues that have come up, maybe to say what you think about the potential financing options, or where you would prioritize particular facilities issues that were raised through the audit? So the question is there a possibility of corporate partnerships? Can you, I guess I would ask what you mean by corporate partnerships, people who would just provide sponsorship and donations?
This is possible. Have people approached us? In the past, we have been approached by developers with nothing concrete at all, just exploratory. We didn't go too far down that road of exploration, really. We kind of just stopped it and started this conversation. What is the bigger vision? And most importantly, how can we ensure that the bigger vision reflects the community's desires? So yes, it's possible. We haven't delved very far down that road, though.
I just want to address that issue of corporate partnerships. And I can say our foundation has made a determined effort to connect with businesses and corporations in our city and in the general area, and has met with good success, but not a significant financial wherewithal has not come our way or the foundation's way. Though they certainly are there, they're in it, they're working on it. We have the foundation is sponsoring us a community-wide extravaganza in early October, and Chris Sellen, who is our president, along with Lynn Green and other foundation board members, have beat the bushes to find corporate sponsors. And there's been success, but not in huge amounts that would address the issues.
At the scale that we're
Right.
talking about.
Yeah, I think the corporate partnership is a very interesting question, because the original question was the rumors that you heard. And I think what happened is, this is right before I came on board, it was about 3 years ago, that the library had a simple conversation with a partner developer, and that kind of spun into some major rumors. So what we decided to do is not have any rumors and just talk to the public and say, hey, here's everything that's happening. Here's what we need to do. And then it's up to the public, the library, all us to make a decision together of what is the best thing to do. So while we've had conversations with corporate partners, we don't want to have conversations with partners that may become rumors. We want to have conversations based on the facts that the community tells us, here's what we would like to do, and here's how we think we can figure out, how to solve the fixing of different parts of the building. So corporate partners, a great idea. What are the terms of that partnership? Do we agree? Is the community in agreement on those terms? There's a lot of nuances on what a partnership looks like. So we do not want to take that step until we talk to the community and we hear what the community wants.
A couple comments that have come in through the Zoom is one person who stated that New Yorkers pay high taxes, and so going the grant route would be what my district would be interested in, or private and corporate donations. So thank you for that. And then another one, which is, doesn't New Rochelle deserve a state-of-the-art library like the one in Yonkers? I don't see how it's possible to upgrade our current decrepit building. Sorry to sound unpopular, but it might be a waste of money. But a sustainably built best of the best would be worthwhile, a good start for New Rochelle. That was a very inspiring one. That New Yorkers are taxed enough and their district would prefer grants or private and corporate donations. Yes.
My name is Chris Sellen, and I'm president of the Library Foundation, and I've tried not to say anything, but it's too hard. I can't. Corporate sponsorships would be wonderful, wonderful, but we have not been successful in raising $10 million all in one try. We have raised quite a bit of money over our 27 years of existence. And we do fulfill the wish list we get from the library every year. Plus, we actually do meet the match requirements for the state grant. So for a library in a small city of 80,000, I think we've done very, very well. But as far as, I think it's a dream to think that you're going to get 10 millions from corporate sponsors. So if the city, and I believe residents love this library and actually support it, that we really have to decide whether this is coming from a bond or tax or taxes. And I don't know, you're going to have to explain the bond and how it would work and the interest and so on and what that would cost. But I just wanted to disillusion everybody that please do not think that the foundation can raise $10 million. It's not going to happen. I wish it could. I wish we would be able to.
Could someone speak to, does the library would you work with the Board of Education or with the City of New Rochelle on a potential bonding project?
Chuck?
Oh, and we have more exciting people coming
This
out
is
of the
our
audience.
Additional colleague, trustee Chuck Burke.
I guess I was the last one on the board when we did a bond. So how many years ago was it, Tom, that we did a bond to finance improvements? 6 years ago, 7
So I'm
years?
sorry, Chuck,
Yes,
would you mind just speaking, making sure you speak slowly and clearly so that a
Yes.
Spanish interpreter is able to
Absolutely.
interpret?
when was the
Thank
last time that we did a bond?
Chuck, it was 6 years ago. It was for $500,000. And prior to that, 4 years before that, we had a bond for $3 million. So those two efforts, $3.5 million in a bond, which we are still paying that bond off. We're
We
paying-
collectively, all us residents are paying the,
Right, thank you.
it's part of, so we currently have a bond outstanding which financed like the entrances on Lawton Street, the entrance on Memorial Highway that are much more modern. It financed those. It financed other improvements to the building that were made, that needed to be made. And so here's how it works. If we were to engage in, call it a $10 million capital project, the way that you would finance that with public financing would be that so the way we issue debt is through the school district, but we sort of control our destiny there. They more just help us with the logistics of it. So we work with a financial advisory firm to go into the marketplace. And if we want to raise $10 million, the financial advisory firm comes up with a proposal that we go out and we socialize with investors like pension funds and, institutional pools of capital. And they look at the marketplace and see what entities that have similar credit ratings of similar type, what type of interest rate that that investors are willing to accept to lend us money. And they basically go out and float the bond to, a proposal, and then investors bid on the proposal. And then we select we select the one where the investor is willing to give us the money at the lowest rate. And then, the term of the bond would be, I don't remember if the current bond is 10 or 20 years or what it is, but, a capital project, you sort of match the term of the financing to sort of the useful life of the capital project. And so you would go out and you would issue the bond. And then what would happen would be, that cost to service the debt and to pay down the principal, so to pay the principal and interest, just like you do if you have a mortgage, that then would be borne, the cost of that would be borne by the taxpayers of the city, so all of us. So that would go into an increase in your tax, your annual tax that you pay to the library, which would obviously just depend upon how much we borrowed and what the interest rate was and the term of the debt. So that's how municipals borrow money. And we would issue it through the school district, but the school district doesn't have an ability really to affect our financing. It's just, we're a school district chartered library, so it happens sort of through that body.
Could I add just one
Please.
thing? Chuck very ably described the mechanics of the process, but the first step would be that the board would have to make the decision that indeed they do want to go forward with a public bond. There would be a vote by the board, and then the process would then go to the school district for its consideration, which typically tends to be sort of a pro forma effort. And then it will go to the clerk of the Board of Education, and the ballot language will be created and will be put on the ballot for the annual library and school district election that happens the third Tuesday of every May. And the community then will have the opportunity to agree with the bond proposition or not. If the community agrees, then we move forward as Chuck described. If the community decides it will not support that initiative, then that effort vis-a-vis public financing will end at that moment in time.
Yes, and thank you all. That was an excellent lesson in municipal finance. We've had a number of comments in the Zoom on this as well, and so my background happens to be in municipal finance, which is why it really is a very good lesson in it. And I just want to make sure that everyone understands that this is how municipal capital projects are always financed by states, by cities, by smaller bonding authorities such as school districts and libraries. It is, as Chuck said, the city equivalent of getting a mortgage on your home. It is how large capital projects are done. It's really just a matter of course, you can also do a big capital campaign, and perhaps meaning fundraising from a combination of private and corporate donations. And possibly the answer is some combination of those things, of course. So it's an exciting time. It's great that there are options. Just to read a few more comments, I think there were some concerns about the idea that people's taxes would go up. Again, much of your taxes already go to paying for various municipal capital projects that have been done by the city and other entities. Excuse me, I'm just looking at the chat. We had another one that was just calling out that we like the New Rochelle Library much better than the Yonkers Library. I liked that one. We have more open space and space to interact, and Yonkers Library is like a cave. That's a direct quote. And what else do we have? Oh, there was a comment that since RXR Realty has developed so much stuff downtown, surely they could contribute to this effort. And then we have another one. I'm going to pass it off to Jordan to read one or two more.
All right. Someone just asked a question in the chat about what about finding local resources of architects and consultants who would donate their services to decrease the cost. We have some fantastic local talent.
Oh, wait, we have a.
It's Chuck Burke, board member. We do that today. We have a CROC, we have a committee. What does CROC stand for? I can't remember.
CROC.
Capital resource, right? I can't recall anymore.
There is a capital resources committee.
So we have a committee that is made up of a combination of library board trustees, Tom, and members of the community that are architects and experts in the field, and they do help. They've been very helpful with this audit that we did. They didn't perform the audit. We hired somebody to do the audit. I think realistically, what we've experienced, the community members who are professionals are very helpful, but they, for the most part, also have other engagements and full-time careers and don't necessarily have the time to, like in the example of the building audit, they weren't going to perform the building audit. They were happy to advise us on the scope of the building audit. They were happy to give us advice on who we might reach out to as potential people to do the audit. But realistically, they don't have, in our experience, the community members just don't have the bandwidth, and we need the full-time focus to make sure that this stuff is done properly, especially when we think about spending, large amounts of money, taxpayer money on improvements.
We should also mention that, to the commenter's point, there is probably, again, it's probably possible, it may be possible that we can reduce the tax burden by partnering with a local developer. That is something we should make sure people understand, that is a possibility. It would make taxes not go up as high.
Depending on what the community agrees on, there, to Whitney's point, there's an option of having a partnership with a developer where there's no tax liability to the community. But that's something that everyone has to decide on, right? And that's why we want to really get away from rumors. We want to just say, here are the facts, and the community can make the choice on what they would like, how they would like to proceed.
Hey, we have just about reached the time to do our wrap up. Is there any final question or comment?
Some people were mentioning the arts, and one of the things that struck me was the library green, and as an extension, this auditorium and the library itself is within walking distance of the train station. There is public parking here. I could think of no better space to market New Rochelle. The growing residences here, the businesses, the arts could be a way to further promote outside in a post-pandemic world. New Rochelle is a community, and the New Rochelle is a source of an artistic community.
Thank you. That was an excellent comment. New Rochelle is a cultural resource and hub. All right. So I think with that, thank you to everyone who has joined us. I think we're just going to go to a quick wrap up from Whitney and Tom. Thank you.
Thank you, Celeste, and thank you, everybody. Thanks for attending tonight's community meeting. The feedback we received will help us shape the library's strategic plan. So your time is extremely appreciated. Everyone here in person tonight and everyone on Zoom, we offer our heartfelt thanks to you for sharing yourselves and your thoughts. We would like to reiterate that this community meeting marks the beginning of public engagement. We will just now be starting to gather input for the NRPL strategic plan. We will launch the survey later this week, which will be live through the end of September. We encourage you to please fill out the New Rochelle Public Library survey and share the link on social media once it's available. Share it through all of your channels. Make sure if you speak to someone, they haven't received it, reach out to us, send it along. We want as many people participating as we can possibly get from as many different facets of our community. We want all voices heard if possible. That's our dream. Please, like I said, encourage your friends, colleagues, family members, and neighbors to take the survey. Join our upcoming board meetings. Again, they are on August 12th and September 9th. We have a public comment period for every library. It's a time you can share your thoughts. If something occurs to you later tonight, come back on August 12th, share it with us. And again, fill out the survey. You can also request a meeting with us to further discuss the strategic plan, and stay tuned for upcoming ways to get involved in this process. If you want to learn more about the process, please contact info@nrpl.org. Thank you all for your participation today. We appreciate the valuable feedback you've provided. And now we're concluding the meeting.
Thank you all so much for coming. And to our Zoom participants, thank you so much.